This video is going to be a film study preview of the Seattle Seahawks New York Giants matchup in Week 5 Sunday afternoon in Seattle. Of course, this is the third consecutive year that these two teams have collided under vastly different circumstances overall, if you ask me, in terms of roster depth and the very balanced nature of this Seahawks team, meaning Geno Smith, their quarterback, is leading the NFL in passing yards, and obviously passing yards per game that flows from that. But this is a defense in Seattle that's big, strong, fast, very physical, and well coached. And lastly, probably extremely motivated to make up for what they believe was an anomaly, and that is giving up 42 points on the road to the Lions in a Monday Night Football loss in Week 4. Simply put, the Seahawks defense gets back a number of returners, two important ones. They'll probably still be without one or two starting caliber players. Byron Murphy out. Boye Mafe and Julian Love, who of course is a former Giant, are both listed as questionable, I believe. And with Nwosu returning, how well Derek Hall is playing. You also have Tyus Bowser, an experienced guy. Draymond Jones, I think that it would probably make the most sense to not play Boye Mafe unless you have some confirmation that he is under no risk or no more elevated risk for re-injury. But they do get back Leonard Williams and Uchenna Nwosu. They're returning to a defense that now at this point is 13th in the league in points per game allowed at 21.3. And that is really due to the fact that Jared Goff carved them up last week, going 18 for 18 passing. He was really in control throughout Detroit's 42-29 win. The Seahawks secondary was intact in that game and will be tomorrow in Week 5 against the Giants. But Goff was nonetheless able to make a number of quick decisions, work through his progressions, and also navigate and get away from some pressure to help the Lions offense really stave off and hold off an unbelievable effort from Geno Smith. This video is going to focus on the Seahawks defense against the Giants offense. It's missing at least two key performers, but you have to mention Geno Smith, how well he's playing, leading the NFL in yards overall. Like I said, he threw for 395 on 56 attempts last week. A lot of pressure put on him in Detroit, and he was up to the task, if you ask me. Seattle gained 38 first downs. They actually lead the NFL in first downs per game. So I think there's some very real evidence of sustainability from this offense, meaning they're able to generate a lot of first downs. Basically, their floor is 18, 19, 20 first downs. We're going to focus this video on multiple aspects of the Seahawks defensive matchup against a Giants team that is missing their biggest weapon in Malik Nabers. I'll let some film flow through here. They have sacked Daniel Jones 15 times in the last two matchups, 2022 and then 2023. Jones also has no touchdowns and 2 interceptions across those 8 quarters of play. And now he'll be without his biggest weapon, Malik Nabers, the rookie wide receiver. I think it's 35 catches at this point. There's obviously some new faces, but there's a lot of the same guys that remain from those two matchups. To wit, in 2022, which was a matchup in Seattle, won by the Seahawks 27-13, Nwosu had 2 sacks. Now, last year, the Seahawks went to New York and left with a 24-3 victory. But 3 different players racked up 2 sacks each, including Devin Witherspoon, who also had a 97-yard pick six, kind of his coming out party, even though he had played well prior to that. My point is the balance of the matchup between the Giants offense and the Seahawks defense is tilted far more in Seattle's favor. Not only has Saquon Barkley departed, and he didn't play in the 2023 game to my knowledge, but now the Giants are without Nabers, probably starting running back Devin Singletary. I think he was listed as doubtful. The offense already was struggling. They came in averaging, I think, 15 points per game. Now they're without Nabers. Again, 35 catches, 3 touchdowns. Singletary leads them with 221 rushing yards through 4 games. Now, he was just held to 24 yards on 14 carries in last week's loss to the Cowboys. How do they get things done against the Seattle defense that I think is extremely talented and very well coached? They need a win. The Giants, that is. They need a win. It's probably just the wrong time and place for them because, number one, Seattle's got to be focused on rebounding and fixing a couple of the mistakes that they made last week against the Lions, number one, and number two, they've got to get a win here, meaning Seattle, because they've got the 49ers coming in on Thursday. I think this one's important for a lot of reasons. 4-1 will be a great start. Granted, 3 of those wins would be at home in this scenario, assuming that the Seahawks are able to get a win on Sunday. Their opponents in their 3 of their 4 wins would be the Broncos, Dolphins, and now the Giants. I understand there will be some concerns about their strength of schedule. I guess that will be the term. I don't know if it's even used in the NFL, but the point is you've got to win the games you should, and then figure out the playoff positioning near the end of the regular season when you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 wins already stacked together. In my opinion, this is a playoff team. This is based on just my instincts from watching the NFL and trying to analyze it over the last 3 or 4 years. I think the Seahawks are a tough group to deal with. The Lions are one of the best offenses in the league. To go in there and compete the way they did without all of the following: Leonard Williams, Nwosu, Mafe, Byron Murphy. I think one of their inside linebackers was on the injury report up to Friday last week. I could be wrong there. The point is there was a lot of talent unavailable for the Seahawks, and they were right there in the fourth quarter. It's 35-27 Lions with 9 minutes left when Tyler Lockett, rightfully so, gets called for an offensive pass interference penalty that would have resulted in a third down conversion to JSN. I think the ball would have been on the Detroit 36 at that point, but I might be wrong. I think it was a tough game. I said this in the reaction video and a couple of film study videos I did over the following week. If you didn't watch, well, actually, who's listening this long that didn't watch? So, needless statement there. A 27-point third quarter between the combined offenses. Geno Smith, I thought, put on a show in that third quarter that branched over into the second play of the fourth when Seattle scores on a short touchdown run to make it 35-27. The defense was only able to get one stop in the ensuing 14 and a half minutes, and they did, in fact, give up a touchdown to the Lions later. This one, gaining the reinforcements of Nwosu, Williams, perhaps Mafe, it's just a different dynamic, a different caliber of opponent than the offense that confronted Seattle when they arrived in Detroit last week. This is they need this win. Both teams do, obviously, if they have any. The Giants specifically, if they have any focus or inkling on actually having a winning record this year. There is no time for the Seahawks offense, however, to lay an egg like they did in the first half of week 1. Things were, not sharp at all in that first game at home against the Broncos. They really made life difficult for McDonald's defense, which didn't skip a beat in basically moving over from Baltimore to Seattle. They held the Broncos to 231 yards of offense overall. I'm gonna look at some things here in a moment that I think Seattle needs to either fix or at least have a better control of than last week against the Lions. Some of them, yes, could be addressed by the return of Nwosu. He's a very underrated outside linebacker. Derek Hall's playing well, so is Boye Mafe, obviously. But Nwosu's extremely underrated. I did a film study video of him, I think, after 2022. He's got 11 and a half sacks in his 23 games in Seattle since coming over from the Chargers. Additional to that, the outside linebacker group without him has 7 sacks between Mafe and Derek Hall. Draymond Jones is listed as a defensive end, so he's slightly different from Hall, Mafe, and Nwosu from a positional standpoint, and obviously from a size standpoint. I think Draymond Jones goes like 6'3", 280, so there's a difference there between those guys, Hall and Mafe, that are in the 260, 265 range, and Nwosu that's a little bit lighter and quicker. But look, the Seahawks have 14 sacks overall. And they're going to hopefully look to continue that trend of getting after Daniel Jones. They sacked him 10 times on that road win last year in New York. There's some intriguing matchups on the other side of the ball. Don't get me wrong. DK Metcalf and the Seahawks wide receivers against a Giants defense that's only allowing 21 points per game. In fact, they're allowing less points per game than the Seahawks so far. I'm not sure that number is going to persist much longer. I really like Deonte Banks, one of the outside corners for the Giants. He's a Maryland guy. I have some familiarity with him from a high school standpoint and even at the University of Maryland. I think he's a high-level corner. The Giants have allowed 475 rushing yards through 4 games. That's about middle of the pack in terms of the league, and that comes at a clip of like 4.7 yards per carry. That's significant, if you ask me, because going up against Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet, both of those guys break tackles often, and they can create big runs if there's any opening in the defensive front. The 3 things I'm going to focus on that I think the Seahawks need to improve, fix, whatever phrase you want to use. They got to tackle better. Sounds very simplistic, and that's related to point number 2. They have to finish plays in the backfield, whether it's against a running back or the quarterback. Last week, there was times where Goff was able to move around a little bit, slide or navigate the pocket somewhat, and make throws down the field. You're facing a better athlete in Daniel Jones this week by far, someone who can actually carry the ball and run downfield. And number three, I actually can't believe I'm saying this one, but a little bit more coordinated in the secondary at times. And I'll show you two plays that I think kind of illustrate that point. So let's get to the film, and I'll actually break down some of it here. This is going to be an example of where I think the Seahawks have to finish plays. Early in the first quarter, I think we're about 5 or 6 minutes in, Goff on a play action, Tyus Bowser up to the top. Yes, you got a great effort by one of the two tight ends on the field for the Lions, but you've got to be able to control a guy like Jared Goff if you want to handle, sack Daniel Jones a lot. Do the Seahawks have the athletic ability, the athletes to do that? Yes, absolutely. Tariq Woolen's going to be in great coverage relationship throughout. So is Devin Witherspoon, Trey Brown, whoever they put out there at safety if Julian Love doesn't play. You've got to be able to control a guy like Daniel Jones better. If you ask me, when there's tackles to be made, I'm not even going to show the Devin Witherspoon missed tackle or when he got ran over by David Montgomery. Some of the blitzes that were there, opportunities to get to the quarterback, Seahawks need to either convert or just get there a split second longer. A couple of the penalties didn't help as well. This is a blitz by Witherspoon when he's at the nickel position. I love how they utilize Witherspoon playing at outside corner some and then moving to the nickel position when it's 11 personnel. So you really, as an offense trying to go against the Seahawks, don't know where he's going to be located on any snap because they do move Reek Woolen around from their nickel defense. He might be on the left, he might be on the right. So you, as a play caller, don't really have a great idea of what you're going to be dealing with in terms of where's Woolen going to be. It's quite obvious that people are trying to avoid him to a large extent, and I can't blame them. If Goff was able to do some of these things, it should be a concern for Seahawks fans that Daniel Jones, without Neighbors and without Devin Singletary, presumably, is their biggest threat. It doesn't mean that I don't think guys like Wan'Dale Robinson can play, but Jones is, if they're going to win, Jones is going to have to play turnover-free football. I know that's difficult for him at times. I understand that. And he's also going to have to make plays with his legs because I don't think they're going to have much in the way of a rush success in rushing the ball against the Seattle defense. Coordinated in the secondary. This one is the 70-yard touchdown to Jamison Williams. Wide open, running an over concept from the bottom side of the screen to the top, the left to right for the defense. So here's what I mean. It's a 5-2 or 3-4 look by the Seahawks. Two inside linebackers on the field. One of your safeties is rolled up to the field. The other safety, Rayshon Jenkins, is going to blitz from the boundary. Ends up being one of these unique and gut-wrenching coverages for a defensive coordinator. 3 under, 2 deep, however you want to call it. There is no safety off the screen here to the left. I actually went and looked and then twice went and counted pre-snap to make sure. There's no one here. Goff with a great throw. Yeah, there's times where, by the way, this puts Detroit up 35-20 in that crazy third quarter. I think we're talking about 3 or 4 minutes left in the third quarter. This play where Jamison Williams goes and dunks the football and draws a penalty. I'm not saying that you can't ever do this. In my opinion, you got some problems here when both safeties are blitzing and no one is handling a deep crosser. I understand what Reek Woolen is doing. Williams is crossing, so he's peeling off to look for someone from the other side of the field. Oftentimes you'll get deep crosser from one side, a deep crosser from the other, and theoretically you get a passing off by the outside corners. But the problem here is the outside corner is occupied by a receiver up there, so therefore there's no one to pick up Jamison Williams. It literally is the perfect call for the defense that the Seahawks chose to play. In my opinion, you can't pass off routes if it's a 3 under, 2 deep. I'm not saying it should be applied to Reek Woolen. I really don't care. I don't pay attention to targets and all that shit. Anyway, the point is someone in Seattle's meeting room, I'm sure, on Monday or in the coaching staff's meetings, Tuesday, was talking about how do we handle this if we get a deep crosser and we're in our 3 under, 2 deep coverage. Final point about coverage being synced up is this touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown late in the fourth quarter. I think it's about 5.5, 6 minutes left. A slot out. St. Brown operates from the slot. First of all, it's a great catch by him. Goff is trying to figure out the coverage. To talk about the routes a little bit and how they manipulate it here. Watch the release of, I think it's Laporta up there, kind of veering to the outside, the top side of our screen, the left-hand side of the Lions offense, and then putting his foot in the ground and bringing this route back in. Why? He's gaining an outside release to take advantage of what I believe to be a quarters read coverage by the Seahawks. Now, quarters, split field, match coverages, people sometimes use those words ubiquitously or synonymously, I should say. In this case, I think the Lions had a great idea of what coverage Seattle was going to be in. And that outside release by Laporta, in my opinion, gives us all the information we need. They're not actually trying to get the ball to Laporta. This route is just designed to hold this outside corner and see what Seattle's nickel defender does, in this case, Witherspoon to that side of the field. St. Brown, great catch, toe taps to get in. If it sounds like I'm being picky, I am. If it's the NFL, number one. Number two, the Seattle Seahawks have a goal, and you as a fan should as well, for them to get into the playoffs and make noise and be a problem team to deal with. And they will be. They have that type of talent, and I think they have that type of coaching. These small issues in coverage, in my opinion, are the difference between losing 42-29 to the Detroit Lions on the road, despite having 4, 5, 6 defensive contributors / starters out, and possibly winning the game 27-24 or 31-27, however it could have worked out theoretically with those guys being out. In my opinion, the Seahawks are close despite giving up 42 points last week. And I understand there'll be people who won't necessarily agree with that. I think that this team has a great opportunity here to get ahead of the Giants. If they got to maintain some balance offensively on the other side. This video was really designed to talk about some of the issues with finishing plays against Daniel Jones, and then more coordinated in the secondary at times. Goff only dropped back to throw, I think, 22 times. So you can't have what I consider to be 2 mistakes. It's a great design by the Lions on the 8-yard touchdown pass to St. Brown. Don't get me wrong. They deserve some credit. As a Seahawks coach, you're responsible for that. They've got to find balance on the other side, meaning run-pass balance. You don't want to have tremendous difficulty running the football against New York and let their pass rush duo of Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau kind of get off. Those two have only combined for 2.5 sacks so far. But you can only hold down talent like that for so long. There is a course correction coming for those two guys in terms of their sack output. They're going to end up with 20-plus sacks combined on the year. You, as a Seahawks fan, just hope that it doesn't happen against you. Now, the crazy thing is, though, there's other guys in New York who have contributed pressure against the quarterback. They've got 15 sacks on the year. That's third in the league at this point. Again, only allowing 21 points per game. They do have a win over the Cleveland Browns. It's a very inconsistent, difficult team to try to judge. There's 10 different guys for New York who have sacks. So finding balance on offense, finding some success either running the football, screens, somewhat anomalous pass concepts that essentially act as outside screen or outside runs, I think is what Seattle has got to have in the playbook to possess the ball longer, keep the Giants defense on the field. Is it possible that the Giants go into Seattle and get a win? Sure. You can tell from the frame that I'm putting this in already that I think the Seahawks have a great opportunity to get a win here, move to 4-1, heading into that Thursday Night Football matchup against the 49ers, which I believe is also at home. The onus and responsibility is on the defense, if you ask me, to really shut down a Giants offense that's missing their biggest player, period, from a talent standpoint, probably on the whole roster. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, would probably argue with you there. But Malik Neighbors is a sensational rookie receiver. 35 catches, 3 touchdowns, like I said earlier. Tore up the Cowboys last week. I think 12 catches on 15 targets. And then also missing Singletary, their top running back. They elevated a running back from the practice squad Saturday. Seems like pretty clear evidence there or indication that Singletary will not play. I think he was questionable throughout the week. It's a great opportunity. You guys let me know what you think of some of my thoughts that I gave out here. I didn't really break down some of the film. I used film to illustrate some of the points that I was making about Seattle's defense. I think there's a tremendous amount of talent over there. No matter what the circumstances, when you give up 42 points, you want to get yourself back on track from a defensive standpoint. And I'm quite sure that Mike McDonald and the defensive staff there have tried to do that this week. I mentioned this in the reaction video to the Lions win last week. I am a huge fan of Leslie Frazier. He's never coached a team that I root for, but his playing career, his coaching career, I think puts Seattle and Mike McDonald in great position to kind of rebound from games like that and hopefully come in on Sunday afternoon and squash a Giants team that is looking for a win and probably desperate, but also is without some significant talent. I will probably be able to watch the second half of the game and get out an abbreviated reaction video Sunday, but I will certainly cover Thursday Night Football's game against the 49ers from a complete standpoint and hopefully have a preview for that game out late Wednesday night. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the plays that I used to kind of illustrate my points here and the things that I think that Seattle was focusing on this week, tackling better / handling an athletic quarterback in Daniel Jones. And then number 2 or 3, however you want to look at it, more coordinated secondary coverage, which, as I admitted earlier, I kind of can't believe I'm saying about a Mike McDonald defense because they really do a great job of running different coverage plays all game and forcing the quarterback to process things post-snap and hold the ball a little longer, which I think is what credit or influences the sack numbers to elevate wherever Mike McDaniel goes. If you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy this preview, albeit a late one, of their Week 5 matchup against the Giants, the third year in a row when these two teams have collided, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so other Seahawks fans can enjoy it as well. Appreciate you guys' time.